For 6 years, the iRacing special events calendar has been bookended by a trip to virtual Tulsa. What began on the high banks of the Daytona International Speedway will end with a dusty grudge match for victory. Welcome to RaceSpotTV and the iRacing Esports Network coverage of the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals. We're happy that all of you are joining us here on a Saturday night. Joshua Lee, your host, with you for all of tonight's racing, and we end this amazing 2025 special events calendar through January. We had the Roar before the 24 and the high banks of Daytona in the Daytona 24 hour, all the way through all of our NASCAR proceedings in the Indy 500, through to the summer where we saw the Spa 24 and the Firecracker 400 coming back, as well as the Brickyard 400. Then we got to the dirt once we got to August with Knoxville and Crandon, and now we end the season with another trip to the dirt in the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals. What always seems to be one of the most anticipated special events on the calendar is back again for a chilly December evening. And speaking of the evening, let's see exactly what we're going to have on deck for tonight. Qualifying about to get started now. It actually already has 2 minutes remaining out of our 3 minutes for qualifying. Each driver gets 2 laps. Track reset to 2% when they began qualifying, and then we're going to go through all of our heat races. 6 8-lap heats. The top 3 out of each of those will advance directly into our main event later on tonight. That'll account for 18 total drivers. Then going into our consolation races, this is what we call the alphabet soup. The E-main, 10 laps. The top 4 don't advance to the feature like they did through those heat races. They advance to the next main, the next one on there, and the next one through there before we end things off with the B main ahead of our feature race later on tonight. 16 laps, and only the top 2 are going to advance from that feature race to get a 20 driver A main race for 55 laps. And track reset is going to happen as well before that A main, resetting back to 3% after another 3% reset in the 5-minute warm-up before that. So no admins making the decisions on track resets like we see in the World of Outlaws Pro Series powered by iRacing. These drivers know when those track resets will be happening, and they will have to plan for those track resets as we go on through the night. No, by the way, no caution laps going to count in that feature either. Quick time in practice, a 9.512, and as qualifying continues on now, that fastest lap by Hank Soares is currently a 9.561. Some really interesting names we're seeing take part in tonight's iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals. Of course, this is the second super session of the weekend and the second super session of the day. Earlier on today, 10 a.m. Eastern time, in the earlier super session, it was Ethan Foley that walked away with that top split super session feature race win. Connor New has won 2 feature races through our preliminaries earlier on this week. Dylan Yeager got a win as well. 2-time champion and 2-time reigning champion Cody Parmley ended up getting the win Tuesday night at 9 p.m. So a lot of familiar names throughout the week, and a lot of familiar names in this race as well as they go through qualifying, which is just now wrapping up. And all that does is set up our starting grids for our heat races tonight. If you're familiar watching us on Monday nights in the World of Outlaws Pro Series powered by iRacing, you know the top 8 get an invert and go into the feature race off of that. Well, nobody's safe from the alphabet soup. We begin with heat race number 1. It is your fastest driver in the quick time and qualifying, Hank Soares, that is going to start on the pole. Riker Morrow going to be to his outside in the second spot. It is Teddy Davis to the inside of row 2 with Luke Repsick to the outside in P4. Dominic Schmidt is going to start to the inside of Bailey Carter in the HendrickCars.com and Flow Racing entry with Logan Julian. Zach Stevens 7th and 8th. Tyler Melton is going to be the final driver on the grid. It is 9 drivers taking part here in heat race number 1, and we will go all the way down through all of our 6 heat races. Then once we get into that alphabet soup, it is only going to get even more fun throughout the night. Everybody lined up behind the official iRacing pace truck, and they will get things started for the first of 6 heat races. I mentioned some really interesting names that I'm looking forward to seeing later on in this race. Everybody watching at home, if you're a fan of the NASCAR Cup Series, you're very familiar with the name Carson Hocevar. We're going to see him in a Chili's painted dirt car later on tonight. once we get into his heat, and I'll give everybody a very quick preview of when we're expecting to see Carson Osavar on the track. And, we're going to watch for heat number 5. He is starting 3rd in that heat, but we still have a lot of racing to go until that point. This is heat race number 1 with 8 laps on the docket here for the first heat race. Remember, no cautions. It is only racing from flag to flag, and the first heat race is underway of the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals on a Saturday night, and they're already fighting for P2 as Riker Morrow has that spot. Teddy Davis now running right in the tire tracks. Hank Soares pulling away with a solid lead up at the front. Dominic Schmidt is in the outside looking in on the bubble spot when it comes to the transfer, and has to try and find a way around the pink and purple number 45 in front of him. But keep in mind, everybody running the bottom lane right now, very much the preferred line, especially before those grooves develop. You're on board with Repsic now in the 34, sitting P7, and you can see Bailey Carter up in front, hitting that inside curve, that raised edge of the racetrack to the inside, almost popping a wheelie. That is possible in these cars with how much horsepower and how little weight these things have under them. We're already with 3 laps to go in this heat. You're on board with Dominic Schmidt looking for the transfer. Does he get the elbows out to try and get to the inside? Doesn't do it in 3 and 4. He's got 2 laps to try and make a move work on the 45. There comes the door. It's going to be open slightly, but the door is immediately slammed by Teddy Davis in the 45 with the white flag back out. 1 final lap to go. Hank Soares is going to lead flag to flag in this heat, but the battle for the transfer almost went south in turn 2, but it's going to be enough for Teddy Davis to hold off that spot. And Riker Morrow is also going to move on to the feature race out of heat race number 1. And that is how we get things started, and that is how quickly 8 laps can go down the drain here at the Tulsa Expo Center from the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals. It's a familiar face on the front row. It's Desmond Busby starting on the pole for heat race number 2. Ryan Hodge, P2 on the outside of the front row. David Snook and Connor Lane, 2 more familiar faces, 3rd and 4th. Mason Kofi and Brody Tesher. I keep mentioning familiar faces. There's another one there. Ethan Dawson, P7. Colton Salick, P8. And Kyle O'Donnell will be starting in P9. And already drivers on the grid eager to get started for heat race number 2. So Soares, Morrow, and Davis advance right to the feature race, and all the other drivers in that heat, depending on where they finished, will sort off into either the E, the D, the C, or the B main before they have to try and race out of those mains. If you're not in the P main, if you're in one of the earlier preliminary mains, you're not going to get an automatic bid into the feature. You'll have to try and race through all of those. We have not seen, at least to my knowledge, a driver go all the way from the E main in the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals through to the feature race, at least not in a broadcasted split. We're going to see if anybody's able to do it tonight. Chase Cabry, I believe, almost made it work last year, but was unable by the time things were settled. Desmond Busby on the pole gets us started for heat race number 2. Now already David Snook's trying to get the spot on Ryan Hodge. Hodge is going to go all the way upstairs, almost hitting the outside wall with Connor Lane and Mason Kofi in tow. You're on board with Kofi, who goes to the inside of Lane and is going to get that spot. Lane up and into the outside wall is going to go all the way down the order now into P9, and he's going to have to race out of one of our alphabet soups, and already the 44 of David Snook gets moved up and out of the groove. He tries to get back to the bottom, already halfway done with his heat, and Snook's now on the outside looking in. Kofi hits the inside of the apron, the raised apron, gets that car upset, opens the door for Snook, who sends a slider in, and Brody Desher is going to go all sorts of cattywampus in turn 4, and he's going to be out of this one as well. Lane's still able to run, O'Donnell's still able to run, Desher's still able to run after some issues, but out of the running for that transfer. It's 3 laps to go, and the gap now 1.5 seconds for the transfer between Kofi and Snook. And that's going to be pretty much everything said and done for the feature, unless the 44 can mount an effort in 1 lap's time. You're on board with Ethan Dawson there for a moment as they take the white flag. It's 1 final lap here in heat race number 2. And the very familiar name of Desmond Busby out in front of this field. We're familiar with him in the World of Outlaws Pro Series powered by iRacing. Give him heat race number 2 victory and an advancement into our feature race. Ryan Hodge, Mason Kofi going to join him in our feature race later on tonight. We've got 6 now that have advanced their way into the feature. Everybody else having a race out of one of our Alphabet Soup races later on tonight. But Kenneth Skidmore is going to be on the pole here for heat race number 3. Now about another familiar name, Aiden Price. Love seeing these drivers that we see racing for the points and racing for the cash in the Pro Series. He's coming out and joining us on the Saturday night for the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals. Cale Coons is going to be to the inside in P3. Landon Graham Jr. to the outside of row 2, P4. Marco Van Stralen inside of row 3. JT Behrman will start to the outside, P6. Tucker Halliday with Richie Trammell on the 4th row, and then Dan Lane, chat favorite, starting on the tail end of heat race number 3, as they are already behind the iRacing pace truck, getting the pacing started, and already 1 pace lap done as well. There is, I mentioned, chat favorite Dan Lane, who's unfortunately starting shotgun on the field here. It's not exactly a death sentence for him if he wants to get one of those top 3 transfer spots, but he's got a lot of work to do as he goes through heat race number 3. These races happen so quick. Laps under 10 seconds here in Tulsa, and we're back underway for heat race number 3, and it's Skidmore who gets a good jump. Aiden Price now side by side with Cale Coons. That's Price on the outside in the 7. It's Coons to the inside in the 10, and they're inviting Landon Graham Jr. on that iRacing painted number 16. You're on board with him now. In the tow, P4 looks to the outside. Does he go for something inside? Those cars sliding up the racetrack. These things are very difficult to maneuver, especially down low on the bottom of this racetrack. These cars, you can barely go full throttle in these things down these straightaways here in Tulsa. But Landon Graham Jr. has to try and put on a charge, and he has to try and get the elbows out for this move. Cale Coons and Aiden Price, they're still continuing their battle for P2. It's kind of settled a little bit now. We're at 4/10 separating second and third. Landon Graham Jr. still sitting, waiting in the wings, watching from the grandstands before he tries to make a move for this transfer. Remember, he is not in this top 3. He'll have to race presumably out of the B main, which will be the first main before the feature race. It's a good spot, but you'd rather be in that A main if you can help it. Everybody's starting to try upstairs. They're starting to go further up to that outside wall, into the outside cushion, with 1 lap to go here in heat race number 3. Landon Graham Jr. sends another one in, but he can't get down low to the apron of the racetrack, and it's Kenneth Skidmore that is going to walk away with the heat race number 3 victory and doing a wheelie, trying to cross the line was Landon Graham Jr. It didn't work, but I'll tell you what, the style points for Landon Graham Jr. trying everything he could to get into the feature and giving us a beautiful wheelie down the front straightaway. I think I'm going to give that a 7.5. Maybe somebody else can give us a little bit of a cleaner one and make it for a transfer a little bit later on. From heat 3 to heat 4, it's Noah Carpenter, another very familiar name for the World of Outlaws Pro Series on the front row. Landon Henry outside P2. Ethan Irons, who we have seen in this Chili Bowl before, have a really good run. Jason Adonikis will start to his outside. Wayne Scott inside of row 3. Amanda Hintz will start to the outside in P6. Casey Hamilton, Jake Wolf, and Keaton Griffiths going to be your final drivers on the grid. And another 9 cars ready for heat race number 4. Just like that, we are over halfway done with the heats. Remember, 6 heat races. We are now into heat race number 4. It is 8 laps in each of these heats. The top 3 advancing to the feature race. We'll race the E main for 10 laps, the D main for 12, the C main for 14, and the B main for 16 later on tonight. And remember, all of those mains, they don't advance directly to the feature. They advance to the next preliminary main race. And anybody go from the E all the way to the A? Well, we're going to find out if anybody can do it in the real world just past the new year, but we're going to find out if anybody can do it here in the virtual world possibly tonight. Pace truck off, ready to go. Heat race number 4. And already on the loud pedal goes Noah Carpenter. That's a big jump from the 6 in front. And Ethan Irons with a slide job trying to go for second place, made contact with, I believe that was Jason Adonicus on the top side. No, that was Landon Henry. Now Adonicus is side by side with Henry, who makes another contact with Irons, and spinning in the back goes Casey Hamilton. Ethan Irons is a pinball now here on lap number 2. We'll put 2 behind us to go into 3, and Adonicus is not safe from drivers behind. Amanda Hintz now into P4. Wayne Scott into P5. They battle through 3 and 4, using them up the track. Amanda Hintz to the inside, going for the transfer. Can't complete that slider. Adonicus around the outside, still solid in speed in that number 52. It's a slider for 4th. Wayne Scott gets the spot on Hintz. And here comes Ethan Irons right back into the picture, trying to make something work for the transfer. All eyes are on P3. Noah Carpenter, Landon Henry up front. They're good at the front of this field. Adonicus now has a mirror full of Wayne Scott. Now it's a left side full of Wayne Scott. Scott going for the move in 1 and 2. He goes for it again in 3 and 4. Slide job. Contact made. They're still side by side. Wayne Scott trying to keep the front tires on the ground with Ethan Irons entering this conversation. White flag will be out. Noah Carpenter versus Landon Henry is all Noah Carpenter out front. The battle for the transfer. Right now it's Jason Adonicus. They're side by side for 4th. Does anything happen for 3rd and 3 and 4? It does not. It's Carpenter, Henry, and Adonicus walking away with transfer spots into the feature race. And that is a battle for the transfer involving 3 cars. It involved 4 cars at a couple of points, but we only take 3. And Adonicus advances into the feature race. Well, if you're tuning in from the world of NASCAR, you're going to recognize the driver there in P3, but you got to recognize the driver up front as well. Chris Parmley, one of the Parmley brothers, a very, very consistent racer on this track, looking to try and do something in this feature race. James Turnbull to the outside, P2. Carson Hocevar in a very familiar Chili's painted car inside of row 2. Tracy Petter outside. TK O'Brien, Damian Ward share row number 3, positions 5 and 6. Brady Baker inside of Carla Davis with Nick Tuller starting out back, shotgun in P9. Like I mentioned, very familiar name in Carson Hocevar in real world racing, and a very familiar Chili's livery as well. I got into this session, I saw Carson Hocevar's name, and I was just hoping that he would have a Chili's car, and I got my answer, and I got my wish with him having a Chili's painted car starting P3 here in this heat. Does he qualify for the feature, or does he have to race out of the alphabet soup? Let's find out. Chris Parmley out in front with a good jump. Hocevar same way from P2. He's gotten right now Turnbull inside, but he's bouncing off of other cars, and Tracy Petter goes up and into the catch fence, but we're 4 wide for P3. That's 4 wide for the transfer. They're still bouncing off of each other. Damian Ward gets the best of it, but Carla Davis says, no, I want that transfer now, and they are going to get it for P3. Carson Hocevar protective for P2, protecting the inside, forcing the 28 onto that raised apron that we mentioned earlier. Damian Ward on the outside line. You can see just where they can choose to run. You can choose multiple lanes in dirt racing. The 28 into a wheelie down the back straightaway into 3. That's not going to be the fastest way around this track. Damian Ward is trying to get around Carson Hocevar now for P2. But what can the 43 do in that spot in the defensive position? 3 laps to go. Chris Parmley in the front of this field has pulled away to the tune of 1.6 seconds. No eyes really up front. The eyes are for P2 with Hocevar having that spot. Ward wants it, just trying to keep up from Carla Davis in the 28, just stalking a little bit back there. They tried to make a run work, but it did not work with lap 7. Does it work on the final lap? Lap 8. The 28 runs the outside. Do they look inside here? They go for it. They go on the apron. Everything they can, but Parmley wins the heat. Contact further back for 4th, but it's Parmley, it's Hocevar, and it's Ward that are going to advance to the feature race. Hocevar does not have to race out of the alphabet soup. I at least hope he's tuning in. He's going to have a lot of racing to watch for the remainder of the event. But if you're a Carson Hocevar fan, you're going to get to see him race in the feature race later on tonight. Ethan Uwe, your 2021 broadcasted split winner, starts on the pole of heat race number 6. Ryan Avila, another familiar Pro Series name, outside of the front row. Kelly Carmen, Jake Helsil is going to be on the second row. Aiden Sneed, Nick Brundage, 5th and 6th. Gage Korn, Kyle Lanfer, Jake Erickson, rounding out the 9 drivers here for our final heat race of the evening. Exciting stuff when you get to watch Carson Hocevar run not only what he's not really known for in the iRacing space, of course does a lot of asphalt oval racing, which is obviously what he is known for in the real world as well, competing in the NASCAR Cup Series, running for Spire Motorsports. But when we get to see him run on the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals, I know he's done dirt racing in the past. This is not unfamiliar to him, but when we get to see him on a Saturday night, this makes things even sweeter as we are a green flag for the final heat race of the night, and it's Uwe and Avila setting the pace at the front. Carmen in P3 has a mirror full to 6. That was Nick Brundage who just sent one in 3 and 4. Sending one in, speaking of, Ryan Avila goes to the race lead, but the eyes are on the transfer. It's Sneed versus Carmen. Sneed up top in the number 42 GovX machine. Downstairs, that's the 14 of Kelly Carmen. They were side by side off of turn 4. Not side by side anymore because Carmen has that spot, and it's another big move from Sneed behind, and a big move from Brundage as well to try and keep up in this battle. They're on board P4, Aiden Sneed, as they go battling for second place now up the road with Carmen and Uwe. Ryan Avila running up top, looking to pull away with Carmen and Uwe going at it now through 3 and 4. It'll be 3 laps to go in the heat this time by Ethan Uwe, like I mentioned, 2021 winner of the broadcasted top split race in 2021. Looking to try and do that again after 2 consistent years from Cody Parmley, who we noticeably do not see in this race. They're still side by side for P2. This is not for a transfer. You gotta look further back to that number 42 that just tried to send one in to reach the back bumper at Kelly Carmen. Doesn't look like anybody's gonna be able to do anything for your top drivers. Avila, Uwe, and Carmen with battling further back. Carmen is gonna get P2 at the line, I believe. Yes, they do. Carmen gets 2nd, Uwe gets 3rd, and you saw what happened with Aiden Sneed, Nick Brundage, Jake Erickson, and the rest. But it's Avila, it's Carmen, and it is Uwe that qualify for the A main and the main event of the evening. Now, we have 18 drivers that have qualified out of our heats into the feature. We still have 4 more to get. Where are we going to get them from? Well, let's get started with our alphabet soup. Tyler Melton is going to start on the pole here for our E main. Kyle O'Donnell, Tucker Holliday, Casey Hamilton on row 2. Nick Tuller, Kyle Lanfer, 5th and 6th. Further back, Zach Stevens, Brody Tesher, Marco Van Stralen, Jake Wolf, 9th and 10th. Tracy Petter and Gage Korn are going to round out your 12 drivers starting here in the E main. Now, out of this E main, 4 drivers are going to advance to our next preliminary main. In that one, 4 more drivers advance to our next preliminary main, then 4 more advance to our next preliminary main, and then once we are at our final preliminary main, we will get the top 2, and they will advance into the feature race. But we have a long, long way to go. The top 4 from this main, keep an eye on them. If any of them even survive the D main that is coming up next, it could be considered a victory for them. Can anybody get out of the alphabet soup and go to the feature? Let's find out. We're green for the E main. 10 laps on the docket, and they're already beating and banging and slamming into each other further back. Desher was involved in that. Gage Korn, Casey Hamilton all getting into it. Tyler Melton, Tucker Holliday, Nick Tuller, Kyle Lanfer pulling away at the front of the field. Kyle O'Donnell outside looking in the number 51 for the transfer. There is that bright high-vis green number 31. That's your current transfer spot. Kyle O'Donnell to the inside in the purple and blue number 51 with the red lettering on the front. He's going to get the spot for the moment, but O'Donnell sends another one into the inside. He is not clear of Lanfer yet. Now he is. going back into turn 3. Lanfer with a crossover move, but gets too far on that inside apron. Using it to raise the front end of that car can help you turn in these corners, but if you do it too much like we just saw, you could be in a world of trouble as Holiday and O'Donnell start beating and banging for third place. They're in the transfer spots right now, but look further back to Lanfer, look further back to Stevens. Can they make any runs further up to this group, especially as O'Donnell and Holiday continue to battle for third? O'Donnell has the spot, Holiday has to settle for P4. Now Holiday is on the bubble spot for this transfer. Lanfer and Stevens trying to make something work from 5th and 6th. Never mind on Stevens, believe he just hit the outside wall. He's now out of this race. Battle for the lead between Tuller and Melton is now going off side by side. It'll be white flag in the E-main, this time by Holiday for the transfer. No pressure really out back from Lanfer, from Van Stralen, from Wolf. The battle up front for not necessarily a better spot in the feature, it's a better spot in the D-main. Nick Tuller is going to win the E-main. Melton, O'Donnell, and Holiday will stay alive. Lanfer, Van Stralen, Wolf, Descher, Korn, Stevens, Hamilton, well, they're not going anywhere else. They are going home. The top 4 advance into the D-main. That is our next preliminary main on deck. And oh, by the way, we're going to start shotgun on the field in this main as well. TK O'Brien, Jake Erickson are on the front row. Repsick, Connor Lane, 3rd and 4th. Chat favorite Dan Lane to the inside of row 3. Keaton Griffiths outside in P6. Brady Baker with the Rowdy Energy colors in P7. Jake Helsell, P8. Nick Tuller, P9. Tyler Melton starts P10 with Kyle O'Donnell and Tucker Holiday. Those last 4 names looking very familiar, almost like we just saw them running in that last E-main. They did not advance to the feature. They advanced to the D-main. And oh, by the way, if you notice the lap count going up from 8 laps from the heats into 10, it's going to continue incrementally upgrading by 2 laps all the way through until we get into that feature. That is a 55 lap feature race. 20 drivers taking part in that one, with the track reset back to 3%. So where this track is now, I think it's wearing in pretty nicely, especially in those corners. You could see that kind of deep groove developing in turns 1 and 2 and in 3 and 4. That will be reset down to 3% before the warm-up, and again down to 3% before our A main. But right now, eyes are on the track, ready to go for the D main. Can any of our E main drivers advance further on and make it through the alphabet soup? Up front, TK O'Brien, Luke Repsek on the front row with Erickson and Dan Lane now into the transfer spots. He's going to have Connor Lane on the outside in the 41, and Dan Lane runs into trouble. He is in a world of hurt now. Further back, Nick Tuller, Helsell fighting for P7 as you're looking at the battle for the transfer. It's Brady Baker up top, making something work with those other 3 cars he's got up there. The 41 on Lane sends one in, makes the room himself, and he's gonna not get 3rd. He's gonna not get 4th, excuse me. He's gonna get 3rd. Around in the middle, Nick Tuller, Jake Helsell making contact. Tucker Holiday's back there as well. It's not looking good for any of our drivers that qualified in from the E-main. Connor Lane back to the transfer spots as Luke Repsick looks back to the inside. This is your battle for the transfer. Repsek inside, black, pink, and white entry on the inside. It's Connor Lane, and that blue number 41 outside. That's Keaton Griffiths that got turned around middle of the pack, or excuse me, Jake Helsell now also turned around. He goes down into P12. Another driver not running for the transfer, and issues outside the transfer spot. Repsek almost doing a stoppie there on the front tires as they all slide into each other in turn 4. That's going to give Dan Lane P5, but more importantly, it's going to give Connor Lane a 1.5 second gap for the transfer. And with 4 laps to go here in the D main, O'Brien, Baker, Erickson, and Lane the top 4. None of those names are familiar from our E-main. You gotta look back to Tyler Melton, who currently runs in 6th for the first driver that advanced out of the E-main into this one. And if he is not able to qualify into our C-main, the hopes of going all the way through the alphabet soup into the feature are unfortunately going to die off. 2 laps to go. O'Brien setting the pace at the front of this field, really well. Was over a second over Baker in P2. Not anymore, as that gap goes a little bit lower, but Melton and Dan Lane fighting for 5th. Baker and Ericsson fighting for 2nd. Ericsson on the inside trying to protect that spot from Brady Baker, but Baker holds on to P2. It's TK O'Brien that will win the G main. They don't advance to the feature, they advance to the C main, and another 14 lap per preliminary is coming up in just a few moments. Starting grid for that one sees JT Behrman that is on the pole, Ethan Irons to the outside, P2, Carla Davis, Nick Brundage gonna be the drivers that are starting within those transfer spots. They're gonna have to defend all they can out back. Bailey Carter, Colton Salick sharing row 3, Richie Trammell, Amanda Hintz, TK O'Brien, and Brady Baker. There's our other drivers from that last main. Jake Erickson, Connor Lane, rounding out the 12 drivers in this starting grid. So we get ready for the C main from 12 laps now to 14 laps, and another top 4 that don't advance to the feature, they advance to the B main. And remember, once we get into that B main, only taking the top 2, advancing the feature out of that one, that is 16 laps. So that is the one that is going to matter. But remember, all these drivers that are getting eliminated, they're out of these transfer spots, they are having to go home. And we're not going to see them later on tonight. There is not another consolation or another last chance anything. This is the last chance for these drivers to qualify for the feature race. We're on board with Nick Brundage, familiar helmet colors, ready to go on the outside line in row 2 in P4. And this entire field, going up and down that grid, a handful of these drivers were a bit of pinballs going through their heats. Are they going to be pinballs again? And what's going to happen for this transfer spot? I look back at Colton Salick, I look back at TK O'Brien, Brady Baker, aggressive drivers. Can they make it into this B main? We're green for the C main. It's Behrman and Irons now top 2. Here comes Carla Davis to the inside. Hits the inside apron as well. Getting a wheelie going on the number 28. Brundage goes up top to try and find that transfer. Running that cushion that's seeming to develop up on the outside. He goes low in 3 and 4 to try and find any way past Bailey Carter and Carla Davis. That is the battle for the transfer. That's contact for the transfer right there. Let's go back on board with Nick Brundage and Brady Baker. Where did he come from? Making his own room on the inside. That door might have been cracked open about an inch. He just kicked that thing in. And now running P5, Brady Baker has a real opportunity to go from the D main through and advancing out of the C main, where now he's got Jake Erickson to try and fight with as well, as Erickson gets into this one, and there's contact for the transfer. That was the 39 of Ethan Irons and Bailey Carter. That puts Baker and Erickson both into the transfer spots. Baker and Erickson, both drivers that advance out of the C main, or out of the D main, trying to advance to the B out of the C. This is TK O'Brien you're on board with now, who is another driver that ran in that last preliminary main. They're all battling for the transfer now. That's the black and pink number 29 of TK O'Brien, who goes upstairs, hits the outside wall to get a speed boost off the corner, and he's gonna go back to the inside. Contact made for the transfer. Erickson trying to make that car as wide as he possibly can. O'Brien goes back up to the cushion in 3 and 4. It's not working out well there. Let's see if it works out well in 1 and 2. Inside line, still looking predominantly like the place you want to be for defensive moves. And that's what Jake Erickson is doing right now. Can O'Brien get a nose ahead, seemingly when that checkered flag is planning to fly later on in this race? It'll be at the line, 3 laps to go. No issues for Behrman at the front. No issues for Carla Davis, now P2. This is your battle for the transfer. TK O'Brien outside, Jake Erickson inside. 2 to go at the line, and Erickson finally loses out to O'Brien, who clears him, and now Erickson's up and into the outside wall, and that is gonna be B-main hopes done for Jake Erickson, who now has Nick Brundage to thank for a P5. Behrman Davis, Baker, and O'Brien, 2 drivers that race out of the D main, will advance to the B main with a shot at the feature race. But Behrman and Carla Davis are going to join him as well. Baker and O'Brien, those 4 advance to our final 16-lap preliminary main of the evening. Connor Lane, Amanda Hintz, both of the issues in that main as well. They finish 11th and 12th. Now, ready for our final preliminary main. This is your B main. Dominic Schmidt, David Snook on the front row, Landon Graham Jr., Wayne Scott sharing row 2, James Turnbull, Aiden Sneed, 5th and 6th. It's Logan Julian, Evan Dawson, 7th and 8th, and then there's your drivers out of that last C main with JT Behrman, Carla Davis, Brady Baker, and TK O'Brien. Loving the support. I'm watching both of our iRacing Esports Network Twitch chat and our iRacing Esports Network YouTube chat. Loving the support I'm seeing. Endurance racers, Formula Series racers, racers and watchers, I should say, tuning into the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals tonight. We're loving that you're entertained by the action, and I can only tell you, if you're entertained by what you're seeing in these preliminary races, get ready for our A main, our feature race later on tonight, when 55 laps, with no caution laps counting in that one, but by the way, gets running later on tonight. And I will mention, give a shameless plug for the World Outlaws Pro Series powered by iRacing, which will be coming back after the new year. We are back running now. The B main is underway. The final opportunity for the A main, and we've already got contact. Landon Graham Jr. just sent Aiden Sneed up and out of the way, put Landon Graham Jr. into P2. We know Turnbull's aggressive as well. David Snook is side by side with him. That's the battle for 3rd. Remember, we're not taking the top 4. We're only taking the top 2. Graham has that spot now. It's the iRacing colored 16 on the inside. David Snook clears for 3rd, but running in the tire tracks of the 16 now. There's a move to the inside. Logan Julian in the number 27. That's battle for P4. Another move to the inside from Turnbull. Loses out on momentum after contact with the driver on his outside. Landon Graham Jr. now side by side with David Snook. Here's your battle for the transfer. Dominic Schmidt looking in his rearview mirror. Loving to see the side-by-side battling that he is seeing for this transfer. We've got another hip check. Landon Graham Jr. sent up out of the way. Aiden Sneed was just on his side 2 tires and almost bicycles his way out of this race. You're on board with Brady Baker, who makes contact for the transfer again. Pushes David Snook out of the way. And Brady Baker almost at the transfer. He now has to settle for P3 outside of the 27 of Logan Julian. Back to the inside. Goes to 17 with no move to make yet. Back inside. Trying to give another hip check. Doesn't get there in time for turn 3. Not even halfway done with this heat or with this preliminary race. It'll be halfway. Coming up this time by Baker hits the outside wall. Big correction in the steering wheel. Logan Julian with a big move. Trying to get that transfer back. Crossover down the front straightaway into turn 1. 3 wide, almost there as Landon Graham Jr. gets into this fight too. There's another hip check to Logan Julian. Look at how much all of this beating and banging, all of this contact, all this racing is doing. It is bringing the rest of the pack in this B main up to him. The 27 of Logan Julian's in trouble. Cattywampus on the outside. Big contact with Carla Davis is going to send him out of this thing. It'll be 5 to go at the line. Dominic Schmidt and Brady Baker might be pulling away with this thing. It's Landon Graham Jr. that is now on the bubble P3. There's Behrman. There's TK O'Brien making contact with Behrman going around. Full 360. Continues going straight. Nothing to see there as Graham holds now P3 with a real shot at catching up to Brady Baker. Now we know that 17 is aggressive, not just on offense, but on defense as well. They both run the same line, up on the wall, up on the cushion. It is now 3 laps remaining here in the B main, and this is your final A main, your final feature starting spot. You're on board in the battle now. 2 laps to go. Baker goes low. Graham follows. He's going to follow in the tire tracks again off of turn 2. He'll have 1 lap to try and do it. Time top side, looking low side, hitting that right rear right up against the wall, but was it too much? He loses momentum down the front straightaway. It's the final push for the final spot in the A main. It's not going to be enough for the 16. Brady Baker and Dominic Schmidt are going to advance out of the B main, and they will race in your feature. They take the final 2 spots on the starting grid. We saw what Landon Graham Jr. was willing to do. He just could not get there in the end. What a run from TK O'Brien as well. He made it through 2 of our mains tonight. Brady Baker, same way. James Turnbull, David Snook, Carla Davis, Wayne Scott. Unfortunately, everybody else back from there is going to be out of this event. And the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals continues on with a track reset to 3%. All of that track degradation, all of that track wearing that you saw, now going to be flipped on its head. And remember, after this 5-minute warm-up, we're going to reset the track again. So it'll be a fresh track, pretty much what you're looking at there, for our feature race. Remember, that's 55 laps with all those 20 drivers that we just talked about, the 18 that advanced from our heats, including the 2 that just advanced from the P main. We'll enjoy a bit of onboard action, a bit of cars running on this track, getting their final tune-ups ready before our A main, the feature race tonight, and enjoy a little bit of freestyling from Ryan Avila as he gets those practice laps in. So that 5-minute warm-up continues with drivers setting lap times in. You're on board with the current fastest. This is Noah Carpenter at a 9.797. His lap times under 10 seconds, even at race speed. Really makes these races go by in a flash. In this feature race, it's only 55 laps, and that sounds like an only, but 55 laps is on the upper echelon of lap counts that you can see in the dirt oval sector, specifically in cars like this that relate to the sprint cars. 35 laps is kind of the standard feature race length that you'll see in the World of Outlaws Pro Series powered by iRacing. We use the 410 sprint cars over there for the sprint car segment of the calendar that just wrapped up this past Monday night. We're seeing 55 laps in the feature, and I mentioned caution laps do not count. The lap count will be frozen every time we see a yellow flag, and this is also the first time that we can see full course yellows on the track in the event. And if you end up at 17 incident points, which honestly is a valid thing to talk about, with the amount of contact and the amount of spinning out and contact with each other that we have seen throughout the evening, 17 incident points, and you will end up with a disqualification, no drive-through or anything like that. Before then, 17 incident points will be disqualification. Over the past 5 or so years, this being the 6th year of the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals, we've had 4 unique top split, broadcast split winners. Cody Parmley went back-to-back 2024, 2023. Rico Robles won back in 22. It was Ethan Uwe that won in 21. And then Logan Rumsey, last year's World of Outlaws Pro Series powered by iRacing champion, finished on the top of the podium in 2020. That 2020 iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals, the first official iRacing sanctioned special event for the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals that we had seen. So the 4 unique winners of this broadcasted split, and I believe other than Ethan Uwe, we do not have any of our former winners of the top broadcasted split in this A main. So Uwe has the chance to win his second broadcasted split, top split win, but the odds are stacked against him, especially with a very, very, very quick crop of drivers. They're going to try all they can to walk away with the feature race victory tonight. It's a solid mix of drivers that we see on Monday nights in the World Outlaws Pro Series powered by iRacing. You see the Chili's machine there, a great balance of some drivers that we see in the real world, specifically Carson Osavar, who we're taking a look at now here live in practice. What can that Chili's machine do? Right now, I will give a spoiler for everybody in the chat. 10.472 is fastest lap. Of course, these laps aren't really meant to be fast. They are warm-up laps, but he will be fighting with a halfway decent spot on the grid. Remember, he finished P2 in heat race number 5. So if my math is correct, he is going to be starting right outside the top 10, P11. That is about halfway up the grid. And he didn't have to race out of the alphabet soup, which could have been the scariest thing if you're a Carson Hocevar fan or if you're a Carson Hocevar watching at home. But the warm-up clock is going to expire, and we're going to get ready and get on the grid for 55 laps in our A main, our feature race, the crescendo of the night in the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals. So with that, as warm-up wraps up, we get ready to take a look at that starting grid, and we have to remember all the way back to heat race number 1. Wherever we started this evening, it was Hank Soares that walked away with that heat race number 1 victory. Heat 2 winner Desmond Busby outside of the front row. Heat 3 winner Kenneth Skidmore. Heat 4 winner Noah Carpenter. Heat 5 winner Chris Parmley. Heat 6 winner Ryan Avila. That is a stacked front page of our starting grid. Riker Morrow, Ryan Hodge, Aiden Price, and Landon Henry round out your top 10. Carson Hocevar and Kelly Carmen, all 6 of those drivers finished second in their respective heats. Teddy Davis, Mason Kofi, Cale Coons, Jason Adonikis, Damian Ward, and Ethan Uwe, your previous winner of this race back in 2021, they all finished in P3. There's your 2 drivers that advanced out of our B main, our final preliminary race. It was Dominic Schmidt and Brady Baker. So 20 drivers take to the starting grid. And we've already seen how aggressive these drivers can get. And now how aggressive will they be for a shot at the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals feature race win. It's been a long road. It hasn't felt that long. It's only been about 45 minutes or so in real world time, but we have gone through 6 heats. We have gone through 4 preliminary mains, of course, practice, qualifying, and the warm-up. And now we get ready for the big moment of the night. It's Hank Soares, Desmond Busby that are going to be on the front row. And for 55 laps and for the final time in the special events calendar, it's feature time in Tulsa. Let's go! Hank Soares with a good start. Desmond Busby going to be on the outside. They're side by side down the back straightaway, but already the yellow flag flies. As quickly as we went green, we see the yellow flag come back out. And we'll see who was involved in that one. I believe Ryan Hodge might have been the driver involved in the first incident of the night here on lap number 1. There's the 12. And that is a big flip. Driver's side first into the wall and into the catch fence. Always lucky when you see wrecks like that we are racing in the virtual world. The racing may be real, but luckily the wrecks are virtual. So we got to hit the reset button and just go right back to the pits for a quick moment. Still Hank Soares out in front, still Desmond Busby in P2. No changes at the front. Kelly Carmen scored further back. That third car, still Kenneth Skidmore. We'll see how much further he ends up if he can make a run for that lead, but pace laps are also quick as they are when they're racing laps. So we are back green going on to lap number 3, and already out in front, still a consistent running from your top 2. That's the 9 of Hank Soares and the 2 of Desmond Busby out in front. And the timing tower showing a little bit of scoring issues, and it looks like that is extending into the sim. I believe it is. We have Landon Henry currently scored as our leader, with Teddy Davis and Carson Hocevar second and third. No matter though, we continue to race on out in front, but currently your scored battle for the lead is between Teddy Davis and Carson Hocevar. Landon Henry out in front has that black flag, and you can see the difference in our gap timing. Dominic Schmidt was currently the last car on the track. Hank Soares running scored in P12 should be your race leader at the current moment. but Henry still has to serve that black flag. No live admins here in the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals as well. It is all done by the iRacing automated admin system. So Henry will have to serve that black flag at some point, but Teddy Davis now is going to assume that top spot by honestly just getting right by Landon Henry. Henry still running that inside. That's that black and red number 13 on the inside line, as this is your scored battle for the lead. It was Soares, Busby battling for the lead before that early yellow flag. Now Chris Parmley has inserted himself into that battle further down, but Henry continuing to run with that black flag. It's Davis on the outside who now gets that spot clear for your feature race lead. Cale Coons, Carson Osavar, Mason Kofi, your score top 5 now is, I believe Henry is going to have to serve this black flag at some point. You're on board with Carson Osavar. Gifted a 4th place spot now in that Chili's machine, and he looks to try and get onto the podium with a move further up the road with Landon Henry. That's side by side between Coons and Henry. Scored for Pete Sue up the road back to turn 1. Getting to watch Carson Osavar also trying to run these cars as quick as they are around this track. Very good, very consistent at running that bottom lane. Reminds me of an Alex Bergeron being able to run that inside line really consistently. Cale Coons and Landon Henry battling for second. It's Teddy Davis who now leads the way in the number 45. We put 15 laps behind us, and it's a 7/10 gap between Coons and Davis. Here's your battle for P5. It's Kofi out in front of this group. Damian Ward you're on board with now on the inside. Dominic Schmidt peeking that nose up top in the number 8, and they're all behind the 43 of Hocevar in this battle, scored for P4. Field goes back through turns 3 and 4. This is Damian Ward you're looking at now with Dominic Schmidt peeking to the outside, using that outside cushion as the track very quickly developing in as the yellow flag flies again. Caution flag number 2. And the 11 goes around further back. That is 2021 winner of the iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals, Ethan Uwe. So, I believe with this second yellow flag, our race scoring might be okay. See once we get back to green. There was contact with Brady Baker. You just saw that with Ethan Uwe. I believe Baker hit that outside wall. He did. Ethan Uwe was going at too big of a head of steam into that corner and ended up with that contact up on the outside of the racetrack. Currently scored behind the iRacing pace truck. It looks like it's trying to pick up your supposed race leader, Hank Soares. Let the iRacing automated admin system get this all figured out, and it does, which goes back to scoring out in front. Teddy Davis in the number 45. Right behind him is that number 10 of Cale Coons as well. Green flag back out. We're not halfway done with this race yet, but we are very close to putting half of this feature race behind us. Coons and Henry now battling for P2. Hocevar still in 4th, Kofi still in 5th. Those drivers that started up front in this field. Hank Soares now back to running P10. Parmley back to running P11. They are not out of this race, especially after that yellow flag bunching the entire field up. But Teddy Davis in the front of this field is playing ultimate defense right now to keep the rest of these cars behind him. Last time by, one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. Could it be the clean air? Could it be that he's not running around any cars? Or could it be that 45 has winning pace under the hood? We're 3 wide further back and a car around. Jason Adonikis around in turn 2, and the yellow flag flies for the 3rd time tonight. Just past halfway. Or just shy of halfway, I should say, that yellow flag. And there's Adonikis with broken front suspension at the very least. Adonikis made contact. It was 3 wide going into turn 3. And that led to drivers running out of real estate. There's Adonikis on the inside, and that was Brady Baker trying to make a move work, middle of 3. And the 52 had that spot there. It ends up sending Adonikis around. Not the first time we've seen Brady Baker make contact and make moves in these races so far tonight. Teddy Davis still holds your lead. Lights back out on the iRacing pace truck. Ready for another restart. Closing in on halfway with these drivers up front. Remember, the drivers that started up front in this heat, the likes of Brady Baker, Hank Soares, and the rest, they're starting to creep their way into the top 10. Do they make anything happen up front? Cale Coons is trying to make something happen for the lead. He almost sent one in on Teddy Davis and almost made contact. They keep it clean and green so far at the front. Henry still in tow with Damian Ward and Carson Osavar rounding out your top 5. Back under the yellow flag. Again, just shy of halfway. Kenneth Skidmore. Looks like the 20 got involved in this one. Mason Kofi as well. Oh, it's contact again off the nose of Brady Baker. The 26 gets hit. That was Mason Kofi. And they came right back up the track to take care of Brady Baker. Leading us to caution flag number 4. So Teddy Davis still holds your lead. No changes in the top 5 just yet. I mentioned those drivers that were quick through the heats, that qualified in through those heats. Teddy Davis was one of those drivers, 3rd place in heat 1 to qualify into this one, but he started all the way out back, P13 on the grid. Some of those drivers that started on those front couple of rows, Soares, Busby. Soares running P7 right now, Busby running P9, and Skidmore still in this one as well. Those drivers that started up front still have an opportunity to make something work in this feature. Teddy Davis back on the loud pedal, running the cushion, gets us back going. Cale Coons protecting now, trying to protect for 2nd place and trying to catch up to Teddy Davis in the front of this field. Side by side, 2nd and 3rd, with the rest of the field back in tow. Watch the likes of Soares, Parmley, Busby. Here comes Carpenter and Avila. They're at the tail end of the top 10, but they're within the top 10 and could be within striking distance if things go their way and if they run this track well. We are now over halfway done with the feature race. On the stopwatch, could just be about 5 more minutes of racing left if we don't see more yellow flags. Osavar still consistent running that bottom even with this track wearing in and getting all that rubber laid in. That gets very, very slick on the inside and on those black grooves that are developing all the way around the track. It is not easy to run there. That's why you're seeing these drivers navigate up towards the cushion. That's why you're seeing them start to use the outside wall. It's working out in front for Teddy Davis, who continues to hold strong and hold the line in the lead. Trying to go 3 wide. Here comes Damian Ward into the picture. He sits P5. Now right behind the 43 of Carson Osavar. Osavar on the inside. He looks to the inside of Landon Henry. Doesn't make any brash moves, but Henry hits the inside curb and gets sent up the racetrack. Your battle for the lead has not changed hands yet, but Cale Coons has done nothing but run in the 45's tire tracks. In order to pass him, he's going to need to do something different than that 45. Do what he's not. And Davis out in the front of this field is playing the defense card well. He's running the line that you need to run to be quick. With Coons, Henry, Osavar, and Ward still your top 5. Damian Ward has had a fast car all night long as well. You're on board with Osavar. Back to the inside of Henry, who now sees Cale Coons up the road too. Do they make moves for P2? Osavar gets clear P3. Coons all the way up on that outside cushion, and Osavar not wanting to go anywhere but the inside apron. Hasn't put a foot wrong yet as Osavar on the inside, and if it keeps working for him, keep going down there. Doesn't matter if it's starting to slick off. It looks like it's working well for that Chili's number 43 to P2 goes Osavar by inches at the line. Trying to clear for it off 2. He doesn't yet. But Osavar in 2nd place. If he clears for 2nd, even if a caution comes out, he starts right behind Teddy Davis. Davis has been great at running that outside line, or running the inside line and blending up the racetrack. Now Davis starts to run down low as Coons and Hocevar are side by side. They're gonna invite Davis into this fight, put the top three under a blanket with 15 to go. Coons now gets too far up and into the outside wall, hits it again and loses a bit of momentum. Hocevar to the inside. Here's your battle for the lead. 3 wide for the feature race victory. Kale Coons going back to the outside, trying to clear for the lead, but he's side by side with NASCAR superstar Carson Hocevar. We are side by side for the lead of the A main. Coons up top, Hocevar down low. He clears him on the low line of coming across the line. He doesn't go up and protect the spot. Now he does. Hocevar clear to the race lead. 10 laps to go next time by. You're on board now from the catbird seat. That's Chris Parmley, who you're watching on board with on the inside. Remember, Chris Parmley, one of your heat race victories. He won the heat that Carson Hocevar finished runner-up in. 10 laps to go with Hocevar out in front. Does Parmley make a move from P3? He still has to get by Cale Coons. And oh, by the way, here comes some lap traffic ahead of him as well. This feature race is far from over, but the yellow flag is back out and we're racking them up for another restart. And I think it was mid-race leader Teddy Davis that was involved in that incident. What a race we have on our hands here for the feature. Here's Teddy Davis. Inside line, that's the Tua Busby who gave him a hip check into the corner. It's a game of inches when you're talking about anything on dirt oval, especially when you're racing cars this fast around the Tulsa Expo Center in a track this small and this tight. So, this leads us in to a late race restart, staring down roughly about 8 laps to go. Hocevar, when he has been in the lead, has shown race-winning pace. We'll hold for one more lap as we continue pacing. But Hocevar out in front. The 10 of Cale Coons in second place has been very, very aggressive, trying to catch up to that group up in front. We are not officially under the green flag yet, and now we are under the green flag. Pace chart didn't come back out. Field decided we're ready to go, and Hocevar leads now by 6/10. It'll be Coons and Parmley who sit now battling for P2 as Hocevar enjoys an 8/10 gap for the race lead. 6 to go this time by. Parmley gets second away from Coons. You're on board at the 10. And Parmley sitting P2 now has to shot at Carson Hocevar. It'll be Hocevar and Parmley fighting for the feature race win in the 2025 iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals with 5 to go. They're reaching that lap traffic again. Remember that late race restart. That field was not bunched up. They're right back into lap traffic. But Parmley loves that inside as much as Hocevar does. We know Hocevar has not strayed from that inside apron yet this race. Does he do it here? He stays on the inside to defend. Parmley's gonna have to move him out of the way. 2 laps to go, this time by the stripe, and the Chili's 43 looking for the checkered flag. Parmley still waiting in the wings. Does he have to go to the outside, or can he make something work inside? White flag is out. One final lap in the A main. Carson Hocevar looking in his mirror, fighting off Chris Parmley, and through 3 and 4 for the final time, NASCAR superstar turned iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals champion, Carson Hocevar is your 2025 broadcasted split champion. And Hocevar is gonna burn it down as much as he can on the front straightaway. And he gets this feature race victory when it mattered. He was the fastest driver out in front. And Hocevar is going to do as many burnouts as he possibly can in this car. Maybe we'll see a couple wheelies popped here or there. But Carson Hocevar walks away with your feature race victory in 2025 and etches himself into more iRacing history. It's Chris Parmley, Cale Coons, Desmond Busby, and Dominic Schmidt, the top 5. Hank Soares, Noah Carpenter, Damian Ward, Ryan Avila, and Aiden Price, your top 10. Mason Kofi, Riker Morrow, Jason Adonicus, Ethan Uwe, Kelly Carmen, all these drivers down from here from P15 on, running into issues in that race. Landon Henry, who had quick pace in the middle of that race. Kenneth Skidmore, Ryan Hodge, Teddy Davis, who led a majority of the middle portion of this race, ends up P19. Brady Baker ends up P20. And that is the tail end of the field for our feature race. Well, Carson Hocevar walks away as an iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals champion. And we remind you that this wraps up the 2025 iRacing special events calendar. But we are right back in just a couple of weeks' time with the Roar at the Daytona International Speedway. That's January 9th and 10th. Right into the Daytona 24 hours, right into the Dale Jr. charity event, and the entire season of the 2026 iRacing special events calendar. We're back on the dirt oval side with the Knoxville Nationals at the beginning of August and the Crandon Championship at the end of that month. And tune in right back here this same weekend next season for the 2026 iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals. But for now, I've been Joshua Lee, Hugo Luis Calmon, bringing everything to you at home. And we're saying good night from the virtual Tulsa Expo Center, where Carson Hocevar has put himself into iRacing history as your 2025 Chili Bowl Nationals champion.